You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome back to another riveting episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Better, the podcast mogul. And today we have a remarkable guest whose expertise in not just entrepreneurship, but also in podcasting is going to inspire you and, of course, enlighten you. Our guest today is a dynamic entrepreneur, accomplished podcaster, and a prolific author. She is the brilliant mind behind the top 100 entrepreneurial podcast, Frugalpreneur, building a business on a bootstrap budget, which all entrepreneurs know when you start, that's you only have bootstraps. Though through her podcast, they have empowered countless listeners by demonstrating how successfully you can launch, manage, and market an online business without, of course, breaking the bank. But her influence extends far beyond podcasting. As founder and CEO of Podcast Marketing Agency, she leads a full-service white-glove marketing, publicity, and PR agency that caters to independent podcasters, podcast networks, guest booking agencies, and podcast production agencies. Her agency has set the standard for excellence in the podcast marketing world, providing tailored solutions that amplify voices and enhance visibility in the crowded podcasting space. With over 4 million podcasts, yeah, it's a little crowded. Our guest's journey is a testament to the power of resourcefulness and determination, with a keen focus on frugality and efficiency. She has built a thriving career by helping others achieve their entrepreneurial dream without excess spending. Her insights into cost-effective business strategies and her deep understanding of the podcasting landscape make her an invaluable resource for anybody looking to elevate the digital presence. So without further ado, let's get into this episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur, with my guest, Sarah St. John. Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Good. Okay, it's good to be here. You're glad to be here? Yeah. I have to say, I love your hat. It is amazing. I told you this beforehand. So anybody who's not watching on YouTube, Sarah has this beautiful black hat with a pug that is just gorgeous. Right in the middle of it, it's standing off. The first thing I said to her when she came into the show was, I love her hat. So this is how you know she's an awesome person. She loves pugs. She loves dogs. Of course, if you love cats, you're an awesome person too. I'm not hating on cats or any other pets. I'm a dog person, so let me have this. But Sarah, let's jump right into it. Why did you decide to become an entrepreneur? More specifically, the Frugalpreneur.
Oh man. Okay. So in 2008, I had 6 different jobs that year, not at the same time, but throughout the year.
I was about to say 6. Look, I know 2 or 3, but 6, you're a little overachiever there.
Yeah. And decided, I didn't like working for someone else, and I needed to become an entrepreneur. And so I started my entrepreneurial journey, I guess, officially in 2008. Had several different businesses, like a photography business, a online travel agency, drop shipping, affiliate marketing, blogging, print on demand, all these different things. And my first business was photography, but then I decided to go into online, and that's when I tried all these different things and discovered all these like free or affordable tools, resources, software to build an online business on a budget. And so I thought I should write a book about this, and it's called Frugalpreneur. And then I was like, I should launch a podcast just to coincide with the book as extra marketing. The podcast initially was only supposed to be like 10 episodes, but I got more leverage and traction with the podcast than the book and love the networking and connection. So I've kept that up. And what was supposed to be like 10 episodes has now been 5 years of podcasting and almost 260 something episodes. And now have a podcast marketing agency and all of that. But yeah, so it was a lot of trial and error, trying different business models between 2008 and like I started podcasting in 2019. But it's only been in the past, couple years, I would say, that I'm all in on podcasting and all of that. So yeah, it took me over a decade to kind of figure out what my niche was going to be, but finally did it.
I love it. No, and it's important that as you going into the entrepreneurial world, right? You don't know what you don't know, right? So you were like, maybe photography. Now, I'm guessing you had a love for photography, and you just didn't say, hey, I want to be a photographer because photographers make the big bucks.
Yeah, well, and like really the only way to make money as a photographer starting out is like weddings and portraits.
Uh-huh.
But I realized I didn't like taking photos of people. I liked taking photos of animals and landscapes and architecture and stuff, like when I would travel. But yeah, but I did it for several years, and yeah.
Oh, I can still feel the passion burning for you from photography. Doing it for
I
a couple
know.
of years, yeah. So once you decided to move into the online space, what was it the kind of like the spark that made you go from taking pictures of people and architect and is all fun and games and so lucrative, to going, you know what, I'm going to try these online space things. What sparked that interest?
I think part of it, or a big part of it, was like the fact that with an online business, there's very little overhead and it's very affordable. Whereas with like photography, I had to buy all the equipment and whatever up front, and then like you have to kind of keep buying stuff or replacing or fixing or whatever. And so it was just becoming expensive, not over, like I didn't have a brick and mortar or retail location or anything. So it was still relatively affordable as non-online businesses go, I guess. But still more money than I wanted to spend, I guess. Plus like all the traveling involved. Traveling to, different weddings and I don't know. I think what really did me in, though, I actually haven't talked about this before. I think what really did me in was I had to do a wedding on my birthday, and it was outside, and my birthday is in June, so it was kind of hot to begin with. But the worst part about it was I ended up getting all kinds of chigger bites. My first time having chigger bites. And hopefully my last. And that was literally the worst. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no, on your birthday, getting trigger bites, in the hot, wherever you were, it was probably an
Dallas,
outside
yeah.
wedding. On top of it, Dallas. Yeah, let's just throw more heat onto you, Dallas. the trigger bites, your birthday. You can't even celebrate your birthday the way you want. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, I can see how you're like, yeah, let's move off of this
Yeah.
into something more less heat reliant, and no bugs usually.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe computer bugs or software bugs.
Stuff that doesn't really hurt me physically,
Right,
just
exactly.
mentally. So when you started attempting like the blogging, the affiliate marketing, the drop shipping, all the other fun entrepreneurial things that you can find online, did you see yourself having like successes in those, or were they like you just tried it and you're like, yeah, no, this does not fit who Sarah is as a person?
Yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of success at, well, I don't know what your definition of success would be, but like my drop shipping business, for example, was like baby onesies, and it was called Funsy Onesie.
That's a great name. That's a
I
friggin'
know
fantastic name.
the name, yeah. And I picked onesies because I figured, first of all, the items can't break. It's not like you're shipping something is being shipped that's like breakable. And it's easier, I think, for people to get the right size, figured out with a baby than like if you're selling adult clothes. I mean, I think the possibility of returns would be higher because maybe it didn't fit just right or whatever. Anyway, and so, I mean, it did decently, and it was fun in a way because like baby onesies, but well, not just onesies, but like outfits and stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is the profit I mean, so depending on how much someone bought, like if you just sell one onesie, you might make $5-10, whatever. Or even if someone bought a whole bunch. So it was kind of like, I didn't like how you'd have to have a whole bunch of orders to really make much of for it to really do anything. But then how can you compete with Amazon or whatever else? And so I was like, I mean, it's cute and fun, but like, it's not really gonna pay the bills, basically.
Which we all need to do is pay those lovely bills that we have. So from the drop shipping, when did you figure out that maybe I could write a book to help others understand how cheap, if you will, or inexpensive is probably a better word because it's not cheap. It takes your time instead of your money, or it takes your money instead of your time. So the inexpensive tools that you use, when did you realize like, hey, there is a need for people to know about all these amazing tools that can help them save a dollar here and there so that they can put it into their business and grow their business?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it was after I had tried several different business models. And I think initially the point of the book was to like talk about the different types of online business models, which I do talk about. But a lot of it is also around like software you can use. And I tend to be kind of a researcher, I guess. And like, I like to compare softwares and like, okay, well, this one, I usually go with either whatever is free or has a lifetime deal on AppSumo.
Our favorite company here at Invest in Yourself, AppSumo,
Exactly.
the one marketplace that all entrepreneurs lose all their money at.
Yeah.
In essence.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I discovered that and like, and a lot of like different software that you need to run a business, like maybe they'll have a free plan up to a certain amount of whatever it might be. And then you have to start paying at a certain point. So like I was just always kind of comparing software platforms that I could use to like run my business for under $100 a month, really. And I was like, I should add this to the book. I mean, this would be helpful information. But that book, obviously written in 2019, I'm sure is quite outdated. Like probably some of those products don't even exist, or maybe they don't offer fruit. Who knows? I need to probably go back at some point and redo it or update it. But yeah, that's kind of where the idea came from. Well, the idea, I remember the moment the idea came to me because I was in the Dave Ramsey financial peace class. Like it's all about paying off debt. And it's a good class and everything, but it's all focused on like saving money, and paying off debt and everything. But I was sitting there thinking, okay, saving money's good, paying off debt's good, but what about like finding ways to make more money? And then I was just sitting there and I was like, Frugalpreneur. That word just came to me. I don't know. And then that's where the idea for the book and then the podcast and yeah.
I want to touch on the podcast because the book is an awesome tool. Whether the tools are still available or not, it's still a lesson that you can find tools out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can help you grow a business for under $100 a month, which is amazing for someone who's just starting out. Because $100, yes, it's a lot, but you think about it, no Starbucks for a month, and you're paid your bills, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you can start making it at home. Because everybody knows a Frappuccino is way too expensive. But I'm wondering, your podcast, like you went into the podcast and you said it's only going to be 10 episodes. What made you decide to continue past the initial 10 episodes?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. I want to say like I launched with 7 episodes and then I did a few more, but then there was kind of a gap where I didn't do any. And then COVID hit because I launched the podcast, I think in the summer of 2019. It's hard to remember exact time frames, but then COVID hit and I had all this, time because now I'm working from home and whatever. And there was only, with the job I had at the time, there was only so much I could actually do from home. So I ended up with a lot of extra free time. And I want to say that's when I started it back up. So COVID might have played a factor, but yeah, just kept going because I loved the conversations I was having, the people that I was able to get on the show that I had followed and admired, like Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas, Jordan Harbinger, all these people. And I love the fact that I could have people on that I wouldn't be able to talk to really if I didn't have a podcast. That's one thing. And then just, meeting people like you and of course, our mutual friend, Mike Cav.
Just Cav, Mike Cav.
Oh, is that how you call him?
I call him Mike Cav or just Mike. But yeah, Mike Cavagioni.
Cavagioni or something like that?
Yeah, he hosts the Average Joe's podcast. Amazing podcast if you want to learn about real estate and investing. But anyway, This is about Sarah, not Mike. But yeah, our mutual friend Mike.
Yeah, and then just so many people I've met in the podcast community. Either them as a guest or me on their show. So, and then I've been going to like podcast conferences. Have you been to any conferences?
Unfortunately, it's a little more expensive for me to go down because of flights.
True.
You guys fly, it's like $20 to fly. For us, it's $2,000 to fly. It's actually cheaper to fly to Europe than it is to fly across Canada.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Taxes and just so much fun. The airport tax, the gas tax, I'm not against taxes as long as we get something out of it. Like our roads are supposed to be paved perfectly. There's more potholes that chickens can live in than anything else.
That's funny.
Yeah. And like one of the going gags is when you're going from Quebec, where I live, to Ontario, which is the province right next to us, you can feel the difference in the road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's like literally once you go over the border, like it's insane. There's a bridge. Obviously, bridges are perfect. Usually they don't fall all the time, but you go over that bridge and you can tell the difference between the roads. That's how bad it is. So yeah, I can understand why people don't like paying taxes when we don't get it. But yeah, it's expensive.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that expensive to fly from Canada to
It can
America.
be, yeah, it can be close to $1,000 just to fly.
Ooh, yikes. Okay. Well, maybe they need to. You'd think they'd have a podcast conference in Toronto or
There
something.
is one in Toronto. I missed out
Oh,
on the last one, but I am planning on going to the next one. And yeah, there are some in Canada, but they're few and far between. But I
mm,
do know the importance of going because the networking possibilities are
yeah.
insane. And didn't you have a speech at one of them?
Yeah. Well, a couple of them now. This last one, Podcast Movement Evolutions, earlier this year, I did. Oh, what was my session? Oh, like tips on basically about what Apple Podcast looks for, kind of what I've been able to decipher and like metrics to get in the top. Well, because after I got in the top 100, I started kind of like backtracking and like figuring out, well, how could the, anyway, so I did a session on that. And then there was at Podfest, I did one on like different podcast player apps and like how to run ads on different apps and stuff. And then I'm going to do a session at Podcast Movement in DC later or next month about I have it right here. The 3 strategies for podcasters to gain media coverage and PR.
Ooh. And I'm
Yeah.
guessing this is obviously from now you're doing the podcast agency.
Right.
Um, how did you decide that you wanted to go into an agency for podcasts like marketing and PR and stuff like that?
So originally my idea was to have a podcast production agency because I have always and still like do my own show, like the editing, post-production, the show notes, the videograms, all of the stuff. And so I was like, well, why not, get paid to do it for other people? But I get so annoyed just doing it for my own show. I don't know if annoyed is the right word, but like, I'm like, oh, I don't know. And so I just kind of sat on the idea, like that's what I was going to do, but like didn't really do anything with it. And then on top of that, there's already so many podcast production agencies out there, and several people I know have their own production agency, Mike being one of them. And um and so I'm like, but the part of it I really like is the marketing side, like growing a show, marketing a show, analytics and PR and press and all that kind of stuff. I was like, well, maybe I could just launch an agency that's all we do, because a lot of podcast production agencies don't offer they might offer social media stuff,
Mhm.
but that's kind of the extent of it usually. And so I was like, okay, there's not as much competition. It's something I enjoy more and am probably better at or whatever. And plus I could maybe team up in some way, shape, or form, or collaborate, I guess, with production agencies. Cause like if their clients want marketing, but the production agency doesn't offer it, they could either refer them and I can offer
A referral.
referral commission, whatever. Or I'm looking at ways of like white labeling. Like they all of a sudden offer marketing services, but it's actually me doing it as under their,
Banner.
anyway. Yeah. So I was like, I feel like there's a lot more, because there aren't as many marketing agencies out there, because it's something I like to do, and because I can find a way to like actually team up, hopefully, with production agencies or even podcast networks where they already have all the clients and stuff. Yeah, so that's how I decided to get into that.
No, I love it, and it's speaking back to your Frugalpreneur sources, right? Where you're looking for not just the cheapest way, but the most cost-effective way to help entrepreneurs and business owners, and now podcasters who are an entrepreneur, because just like entrepreneurs, we do it all ourselves. Like you said, you do all the editing, the hosting, all that fun stuff that we love as podcasters. And if you can't tell, most podcasters just love this part where we're talking to
Right.
people. The pre and post is the worst part of podcasting, because it's a lot more work.
Mm-hmm.
Podcasters don't like work. We just like to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
But with everything you've done, what are some of the more standout lessons that you've learned in your years as an entrepreneur, as a podcaster, as an agency owner? Because you've done a lot since 2008. You're an author, you're a podcaster, business owner, and now you're an agency owner. What are some of the big lessons that stand out for you that you've learned on this journey so far?
Oh, I would say trying to avoid shiny object syndrome. I've learned that at least I feel better about it because it's basically something that almost every entrepreneur has. I thought it was just me for the longest time, but then I realized, no, this is like a thing. And for those who don't know what that is, it's like you constantly getting new ideas. I mean, I guess that's kind of like ADD sort of, but for entrepreneurs. It's like
it's more costly as an entrepreneur, or ADD or ADHD, whichever you want.
And so that's why I tried so many different businesses. And I mean, I guess it ended up working out in the end because then I wrote a book about it and then podcast, all that. But it's like, and I still get ideas all the time, or even ideas for physical products like inventions or apps or something. And I'm like, okay, first of all, but at least now I like reel it in because I'm like, well, first of all, how much money would it take to do this? Do I even have the know-how? Like I would have to find people to, I tend to like to do stuff that I know I can pretty much run the whole thing. I mean, I might at some point hire like outsource people to do some tasks or something, but like I don't have to depend on others for like big parts of it. And so I'm definitely better at like reeling it in and not actually jumping and on the idea and then trying to do something. Because the thing is if like you're doing 10 different things, well, then you can only focus 10% on each thing. But if you're focusing on one thing, like for me now, I mean, yes, okay, I have the podcast, I have the agency, but it's still at least all within the podcasting realm, which I think, I don't feel it's as shiny objecty.
No, you're staying inside your niche. Right? Yes, we can
Right.
still have that shiny object on the outside, but you're concentrating in the minute right here. You're like, my job is dealing with podcasters, helping them with their PR, businesses with their podcast PR. So you're still in the same world, the same Venn diagram, if you will, of shiny object syndrome, but it's more related to what you're doing now.
Right. So like when I have an idea of a whole other business idea or an invention or an app or whatever, if it's not related to podcasting, on even if it is, I don't know. But I'm just better at like letting that go at this point.
You're like, it doesn't deal with podcasting. Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know something. Where do you see yourself? Because you've been in the game quite some time. We're closing in on 2 decades now that you've been an entrepreneur. You're just shy of 2 decades now. Where do you see yourself in the next decade?
Well, still in podcasting. I think I finally found the niche. Hopefully with a very successful podcast marketing agency. I would like to do, more speaking and whatnot. I mean, even if I could get paid to speak at some point, That's not like a goal right now, but
Uh-huh.
that would be awesome if that became a thing. Or like do a TEDx. I already have kind of an idea for that. But let's see. Yeah, I would like to be, help people launch, grow, and market and monetize their shows and be kind of the go-to in the podcast marketing space.
Oh, definitely going to happen because you have that energy, you have that knowledge from getting a top 100 podcast that has helped you sell more books, helped you get clients, and that. So anybody who's like, no, it doesn't work, I got a person right here. She's been able to interview amazing people like Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas. Like, come on, those are the godfathers of the new evolution of podcasting. Without them, I don't think we'd be nearly as big as we are today with over 4 million podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of podcasting, I know we're going to have an episode on the podcast series later, but I need to ask you, what is maybe one tip you can give the entrepreneurs listening that may have a podcast to help them get into that top spot? Because you have a top 100 podcast. Now, a lot of people can say that. A lot of people can say they have a top 1,000 podcast because or a top 1,000,000 podcast, but specifically a top 100 podcast is somewhat difficult to get. What's one piece of advice you could share with the audience that would allow them to, take their podcast to that next level?
Yeah. Well, one thing, so kind of about a year-ish ago, I noticed that I had a sudden increase in downloads, and I wasn't sure what could have caused that. I mean, yes, I guess on other podcasts, but I hadn't been on any kind of podcast that was like huge or anything. I didn't do any kind of ad or promo around this time or anything. So I was like, and it was kind of a steady increase. I mean, steady as in like there was a rapid increase, but it stayed. It wasn't like one day of a spike or something.
It was it was like you had that spike and then it just it leveled off or
Right.
slowly continued that rise. It wasn't just an up and down like a roller coaster. It was a nice, wavy mountain road, if we will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I was just like, I'm so confused. Like, what? So I told a couple of my podcast friends, and like, I didn't even think of this, but they took it upon themselves to like look at Apple Podcasts. And one of my friends was like, at this time, I was in the top 200. Well, then, like a couple days later, then I got in the 100. But she sent me a screenshot of me in the top 200. And then another friend screenshotted that I was in the essentials, which there's only 8 in essentials per category. And last I checked, I was still in the 8 essentials for entrepreneurship. And I was like, yeah, I was like, what in the world? And so I was trying to figure out, well, how is this happening? And to this day, I don't know for sure if this happened. But like Apple Podcasts, they have a and this is one of the things I talked about in that speech. They have where you can submit for Apple Podcasts to promote your show, and it's a free submission. There's no guarantee they'll pick your show. And the thing is you don't even know if they do. They don't. So the only thing I can think of is they picked it, but I had applied for that months prior to this happening. And I was never alerted that they did. So I still don't know for sure if that played a factor or not. But that's one thing that people can do is submit to Apple Podcast promotion. And then there's several other like podcast apps or directories that have some you do have to pay for, but others they do have the free. And I just do all the free ones where you can submit it. Whether or not they, promote your show or not is a different story, but why not try? And so, so that's one thing. The other only thing I can think of, and I talked about this also, is that is when it was around that time that I started doing more episodes and shorter episodes. So instead of having like a 60-minute episode once a week, I was doing like 3 episodes a week that were like maybe 10 minutes each. And so the download numbers were higher because now I had 3 episodes a week. But the big thing was the retention rate had rapidly increased because, an hour-long episode, maybe a 50% retention rate, whereas when I started putting out 10-minute episodes, it was more like a 90% or beyond. And that's one of the key factors I realized that Apple takes into account when it's one of the factors is retention rate. Like how long, how much of the episode did someone listen to? And so those are a couple of the things. So now I do a mix of I do 10-minute. I don't release 3 times a week anymore. I still just do once a week, but some of them are 10 minutes. Others are 30 to 60. It just all kind of depends. But I have found that the shorter episodes, they don't necessarily get more downloads, but they do have a higher retention rate. So I think that's an important factor to keep in mind.
No, I found that as well, since I have a small production company that I help little entrepreneurs run their podcast. And I always suggest when doing a solo episode to keep it under 20 minutes, because I've seen with my clients, the ones over 20 minutes that's solo, people get bored. It reminds them of class most of the time. And I don't know about you, but I wasn't a big fan of sitting in a classroom listening to a teacher drone on for hours. But a quick 10-minute, 20-minute episode is something that, it's your car ride to work, or it's your commute to work, and it's done in an instant. So yeah, but I find when you have a guest on, those are the episodes that aren't a problem going longer, because people love hearing the advice from great entrepreneurs like yourself, Sarah. And since we are coming to the end, which I frigging hate, because Sarah, we're having such a great time. It's an amazing time, and I'm also just staring at your hat. I'm just jealous of your hat, pretty much. But I want to know, before we get to the final question here, how do you balance everything to keep investing in yourself? You're an author, entrepreneur, you're a podcast host, you're a podcast producer, you're a marketer. You do all these things. You have 84 different hats with different pugs on them. I'm going to call this episode the pug episode just because I said it so often. But I want to know, how do you take time to invest in yourself? What do you do to invest in yourself, to upskill your skills, or just to make yourself better?
Well, I listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of podcasts about podcasting. I think I subscribe to over 50 podcasts, and I would say at least half of them, if not more, are about podcasting. So there's that. And occasionally, watch a YouTube video or a course or a book. I read a lot of books. So yeah, just investing in, I guess, education. But I think one of the things, though, is that we can get so consumed with consumption that if we don't take the time to actually implement what we're learning, so that's one thing that I've, in addition to the shiny object syndrome, another thing I realized was that I was spending so much time consuming and not creating. And so I'm trying to balance those out more of, ideally for every hour of consumption, whether it's a podcast, a book, whatever, that I spend an hour creating. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's my goal.
I love it. No, that's a great goal, especially when you're a recovering shiny object sufferer. Taking that hour to implement stuff instead of just another hour of learning stuff that may or may not be useful for you. We're going to jump into the last episode, the last question, because this is not the last episode we'll have. We'll have multiple episodes going on in the future with Sarah and other guests. But Sarah, I have your 10-year-old self here. She's amazing. She doesn't have a pug hat on, but she's telling me how much she loves pugs. I want to know, what kind of advice, or what's one piece of advice you would love to be able to hand back to your 10-year-old self?
Well, aside from avoid shiny object syndrome, I guess just, stick with it and eventually it'll all work and pan out, even though the road might be rough and rocky, and even though the road might be like Quebec with like chicken potholes or whatever.
Are you sure you're not a comedian? Because that was a great callback. That was an
I know.
amazing callback.
I know, it was pretty good. But yeah, just stick with it and don't get discouraged. Know that it'll all work out in the end. Yeah.
I love it. That's some great advice. Avoid the shiny objects syndrome, and even if there's chicken-sized potholes, you'll be okay on the road of life. Sarah, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to tell my audience where they can connect with you, where they can listen to your podcast, whatever you feel like having them do to help support you. The floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, so if you want to check out my podcast, it's called Frugalpreneur, and the tagline is building a business on a bootstrap budget. You can find it in any podcast app player, or you can just go to the website directly at frugal.show. And then my podcast marketing agency, the website is podcastmarketing.agency. And then I also have a free online community for podcasters looking to grow, market, and monetize their shows. And you can go to that at ampmypod.com.
Excellent. I love that, Sarah. So many places, so many resources for you to help out aspiring entrepreneurs and podcasters. And you also have a school group that I'm a part of, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Amp My Pod community. Yeah.
Good. Okay, it's the Amp My Pod community. So good. Sarah, I can't thank you enough for being here. It was a pleasure having you on. I love talking with you. I'm jealous of your hat, of course. I'm probably going to steal it when we see each other. Shh, don't tell her. But I can't thank you enough for being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Excellent. To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below to stay in connect with Sarah and see all the amazing stuff she does. And of course, listen to that top 100 podcast because it is worth your time, Frugalpreneur. And it will teach you a lot about business and how to keep your business relatively cheap or inexpensive as you grow. So I want to thank you all for listening again, Sarah. Thank you very much for being here. And of course, always remember to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.